All right, my name is Judson Powell. Welcome to the fastest 15 minutes on social media. And I talk about race, politics, and spirituality and religion. I didn't mean to say race, but actually I did. I really did mean to say it. Anyway, subscribe um, and hit the thumbs up button for me so that more people get an opportunity to see my videos. Anyway. So I just want to talk about race, and I want to go back to Kamala Harris one more time. And the reason is because today she released a home ownership program, supposedly $100 billion home ownership program. Well, I'm not mad at that. Don't get me wrong. What I'm mad about is that should be part of the reparations package. That's what we should be getting. We should be given those homes because we all know that if there's another government program, what's going to happen with that government program? We're going to end up somewhere in the hole. Every government program that the United States has ever come out with has been detrimental to African Americans or African descendants of slaves or the so-called black people, whatever you want to call us, the name you want to give us, Negroes. We've had like 1,000 names. But the bottom line is that every single government program that has ever been brought out for us is always detrimental to us. And we can go all the way back. Even some of the programs that aren't for us, like welfare and things like that, welfare single-handedly responsible for the breakup of the black home. Everybody saw, if you haven't seen it, get yourself a copy of the movie Claudine, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Basically, the whole thing is, get rid of the father, throw the father out of the house, and then give the mother a whole bunch of money, and then tell the man he's not no good. And it was systemic racism, and that's all it is. Because I never understood. Well, if a family is in trouble, why don't you give the money to the whole family? As a matter of fact, it would be more advantageous to give it to a family that's all together. Why? Because their opportunity there, or their chance of being successful, is increased tremendously by the nuclear family being in one piece. But no, they sent out social workers just to make sure that no men were around. Okay, the women, same thing with all of these other programs that they've come up with. You remember the Small Business Administration, which was supposed to somehow, way, shape, or form give black people money to start businesses, and they made the process of getting the loans so complicated that nobody could even figure out what it was that you were supposed to do in order to get an SBA loan. I know some people got them, but most people did not have the expertise in order to acquire those loans. Why? Because there were so many hoops to jump through that nobody could get them, right? Okay, and then we've had the minority enterprise thing that went on for a while, and that was if you would be given government grants based on the fact that that you were a minority. But what happened was people found loopholes in the law, and of course, once they found those loopholes, they used them, they exposed them. So, and you even had people, even as far as faking marriages, so that they could get that money, because what it said basically was, if you were a minority, if you were a woman, then you could apply for these grants readily and easily. And a lot of people declared, or they formed home businesses, and it was like, okay, yeah, well, my black wife is the CEO, chief financial officer, et cetera, so that they could get a hold of the money. So once again, didn't help gentrify the black community, didn't do anything for the black community. As a matter of fact, it put a lot of people in trouble, a lot of those businesses. As a matter of fact, when the whole thing went up with Baby Bush and the country went into a slide, most of those businesses, those were the first businesses that went out of business or went bankrupt. So once again, we gotta police them. Whenever they start talking about government programs, we need to police them. And once again, I'll put my 2 cents in about reparations. Reparations has to be something that will, number one, will not injure the country. because we don't want to injure the country, and then we have no country, to use the money to spend. And, I mean, Trump is running up trillions of dollars worth of debt, and then they're estimating anywhere between 14 and 50 trillion dollars if they just gave out reparations. But that's not even saying how much. But once again, I think the better alternative, and with Kamala in mind, I will say this, that giving out land is probably a much better thing. It's probably a much better idea. And I think that program, instead of being some type of government program where you're locked into some kind of loan or locked into some kind of tie down with the government, why don't you just give people in ADOS, just give them the property, and have create a homes, instead of a new program, create a homesteading act. It was done many years ago, and it can be done now. We still have millions of acres of unused land. We have thousands of abandoned properties all over the country. We have abandoned places everywhere. So as opposed to just letting those places stay abandoned, give those to the American descendants of slaves as reparations. And I think that would be a much better idea. And then on top of that, no taxes, at least for a period of 10 to 20 years. And then because if you give it to them and then they lose it in taxes, that's not really reparations. Now, if you give them 10 to 20 years and they lose it after 20 years, then that's a whole different ball game. Then you just squander what you had. But at least give them the opportunity to have those things. And the same thing, being, because you can imagine if a person was a homeowner without actually having to pay a mortgage, it would be a great thing for the economy. It would be a ability for those people to, to financially come up, because of course, the main thing is not getting the house. The main thing is keeping the house, paying the mortgage, paying the taxes, etc., utilities, all that kind of stuff. But if you could have a house where you're just paying utilities, and it's only fair. Why? Because they made billions, trillions of dollars off of slavery. And let's be clear about what slavery did, and the 400-year economic head start that it gave white people. White people had a 400-year head start. So imagine yourself, anybody out there that's ever owned a business or run a business, imagine if you could run your business, you didn't have to pay any labor costs, and basically you didn't even have to really pay any supply costs, because everything was being supplied right there, because at that point we were an agrarian society, meaning we were based on agriculture, farming, and that kind of thing. So all you're doing is just growing the crops. You got people out in the field tending to the crops. You sell the crops and you get the money, and you don't have to pay anybody. So obviously that's going to give you a tremendous head start. And I'm not sure about, I haven't really researched, but a lot of people that have researched claim that most of that money ended up going into the American banking system and into all the stockbrokers and banks and all of that. And that's how those people got so rich. So, Smith, Barney, and Chase, and all those huge companies like that all ended up getting part of that money. So we have to think about that in terms of that 400-year head start. So giving somebody a 20-year head start is not really reparations, but it's fair. Even if we conceded to that, that's actually fair. So with Kamala, this thing looks like it's another, okay, yeah, we're going to give you this, but of course, what are they going to do? They're going to put their stipulations on it, and that's not reparations, and that's not really a good program, especially for people that really are struggling and trying to come up in the world. Okay, so I got to pay you back for this house. Well, even if I pay you back for the house, how is that really helping me? Because, okay, yeah, I realize that there are a lot of people who can't qualify for loans and that kind of stuff. That's the other thing about reparations. It doesn't have to, it doesn't even really have to deal with whether or not you qualify or not. You qualify if you're a descendant of slaves. And that should be the only qualification. Other than that, then we should be able to, do that homestead. So I think the better thing is a homesteading act, I think that's the best thing you can get, just like, because the 40 acres and the mule that was promised, hey, I'll take 40 acres. We can, we could take the 40 acres and do whatever we want with it, and no taxes on it for, say, 20 years. 40 acres with no tax for 40 years, or I'm not saying 40 years, for 20 years. That's a good deal. And I think, and it wouldn't bankrupt the country. Why? Because we're talking about vacant, unused land that after that 20-year period, then all of a sudden it's going to be bringing in taxes. Not to mention, a lot of people are going to use that land to make money, to grow things, to manufacture things, all that kind of stuff. So maybe like some people won't necessarily get 40 acres. Maybe one guy wants, one of these old closed down factories so that he can start a production company of, making something. There's all kinds of possibilities, if we just brainstorm on it and we think, but a lot of people there, I think, a lot of the white folks, they're apprehensive about it because of the fact that they're like, well, they first of all, they know the creativity of the black man, first of all, and the black woman. They understand our creativity. So they know that there's going to be people that are going to take this stuff, and the problem is that they can't economically control it. So believe me, every government program, no matter who introduces it, is always about the government being able to economically or systemically control our community or whatever. So that's why we had all the redlining and the gerrymandering and all this stuff going on. Why? You can't get a loan. You can't get a loan if you want to buy a house over here, but you can get a loan if you want to buy a house in the hood. And those are the type of things that have always existed in the United States. So that's like some of the stuff that really has to be done away with. We can't keep on looking at that stuff from the perspective of putting us in a detrimental situation, and that's every government program has always put us in a detrimental situation. Just like I was telling people, like any politician that says they're tough on crime is just code words for we're going to lock up and brutalize black people. And it's been like that since Reagan was in office. Oh, we're tough on crime. And I mentioned it before, the whole Willie Horton thing and all of that. Oh, we're tough on crime. Or, the propaganda is to make people scared of us when actually we're not the people that are causing the problems. We're not making people fearful. Of course, if you don't give us any jobs, if you don't give us any way to own property, if you don't give us any way to survive, then people are going to do what they got to do in order to survive. Or if you just putting drugs on our streets, incessantly all the time, and that's the only way that they see out, then of course you're systemically forcing them to take that way out. Not that that's the way out that they want, it's just the way out that they have, and basically that's the way it's been since the 80s. So since the 80s, everything, after the Vietnam War ended and the 70s, then the 80s came along and it was just, crack city. And now it is really funny how now with the opioids and the heroin crisis, it's like, oh, well, they need help, because it's mostly rich white people. They need help. But we didn't need help when it was crack. We just needed to go to jail. And, this whole methamphetamine and bath salts and all this kind of crap, for the most part, black people don't use that, even though they have tried to infuse it into the music. And, check what these rappers are saying. They're trying to infuse those new drugs into the music to get our kids hooked on that stuff. So don't believe the hype. But Kamala, I'm glad you introduced the bill. I'm not hating. I just want to tell you, though, make it free. Give those houses away. Give that land away as part of the reparations package. In fact, if you want to introduce a bill, introduce the reparations bill. You and Cory Booker should be the ones writing that reparations bill. Y'all should be researching it, and y'all should be doing the work on it, the footwork on it. That's my problem. It's like, look, don't sit up there and act like you for black people, but you're not trying to do it. That's just the whole thing. Anyway, That's my 15 minutes. Remember, subscribe, like, and share with your friends. That's the fastest 15 minutes on social media. I'm Judson Powell. I'll see you next time. I love you.